A minute. I saw it.
I'd like to bring this meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board to order. Is there a motion to convene closed session?
Madam Chair, I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Surza?
Ms. Cook?
Aye.
Mr. Dowell?
Aye.
Ms. Hummel?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mrs. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Beers?
Aye.
Ms. Ownby?
Aye. Next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and the Lafayette girls field hockey team will be leading us in the pledge.
The whole group?
Entire team minus one. I understand one player is not feeling well tonight, but
Whole group?
ladies, please come up. Please come to the podium. The whole team. And when you're ready, you may begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
That's kind of funny.
Ms. Surza, would you please call attendance?
Dr. Beers?
Here.
Ms. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Dowell?
Here.
Ms. Hummel?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mrs. Young?
Here.
Ms. Ownby?
Here. Item 3.3, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Surza?
Mr. Dowell?
Aye.
Ms. Hummel?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mrs. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Beers?
Aye.
Ms. Cook?
Aye.
Ms. Ownby?
Aye. Item 4.1, announcements and superintendent's report. Dr. Herron?
Good evening, Madam Chair. My report this evening begins with a learning opportunity for all WJCC families. As you know, it's never too early to start saving for college, but getting started can be a challenge. That's why the Parent Academy is hosting a workshop tomorrow night with representatives from Virginia 529. Families will explore prepaid tuition and other saving options. The Parent Academy begins at 6 p.m. at James Blair Middle School. Pre-registration is not required. February is Career and Technical Education Month. Did you know that WJCC Schools offers CTE classes at both the middle and high school level? Some courses, such as auto technology, building construction, and culinary arts, are taught at New Horizons, but others are taking place in our schools. This photo shows Lafayette High School students in Mr. Adal's architectural design class. They are building treehouse models. CTE courses provide students with hands-on experiences and opportunities to earn occupational licenses and industry certifications. Last school year, 1,453 WJCC students earned at least one CTE credential. We anticipate similar results this year. Last Thursday, February 13th, marked the 100th day of school. Can you believe it? As you can see in these photographs, our elementary school students embraced the day by dressing up as 100-year-olds and taking part in activities counting, sorting, and stacking 100 objects. What a fun day of learning. And speaking of fun, Take a look at this video of Miss Logan's kindergarten class at Claribird Baker Elementary. Students were learning about shadows. Clearly, they are actively engaged in the learning. These students had a fantastic time seeing what their own shadows look like. We should all enjoy our work this much. Madam Chair, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Heron. I know some of my colleagues have updates, but before I move to colleagues, I wanted to recognize Ms. Surza. As per the Governor's proclamation, this week is Board Clerk Appreciation. And so from the bottom of our heart, the school board recognizes you and thanks you for all that you do, for arranging meeting space. No. For taking our... No. We're going to deliver the flowers to her. For taking diligent notes at our meeting minutes, for arranging our calendars. There are 7 of us to corral. It's often probably like herding cats. For collecting receipts, reminding us to complete mandatory reporting documents to the state, registering us for many, many conferences. You keep our schedule straight. You help us organize with our funding partners and coordinate building tours. And so we could not do our work without all that you do for us. So thank you so very much, Ms. Surza. And so I know Ms. Cook has an update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually would like to update the board on 2 things. The first is the Special Education Advisory Committee that Mrs. Young and I attended last week. And the primary topic of the meeting was learning about WJCC's transition services. And I think it's of note that Virginia ranks comparatively poorly, 39th out of 50, when it comes to ensuring that individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities are included, supported, and empowered within their communities as adults. And this makes transitioning out of high school in Virginia particularly challenging for our students and for their families. Williamsburg, James City County provides services to help students transition to adulthood, and they're based on students' goals and strengths. And they include a focus on independent living, employment, post-secondary education and training, and self-determination. So it was a fascinating presentation by Williamsburg, James City County staff, and I would encourage people to look on our webpage to learn more about it. And the Special Education Advisory Committee has a Facebook page, which I also would commend to all of you. And I don't know if, as you're lining up your equity presentations, Dr. Heron, if that's one that the community might value learning about, because the services are really tremendous. So that was the first thing, and I'm happy to answer any questions if any of you have them. And then the other item I wanted to talk about was the 2020 census. Locally, we have what's called a complete count committee that is chaired by the director of the Williamsburg Library, Betsy Fowler, and she hosted a meeting last week to learn about the census, and Williamsburg, James City County Schools was ably represented by Dr. Murphy. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. But I just wanted to announce that for every person that's not counted, a community loses $2,000 per year per uncounted person, and that's for 10 years. So it's an estimated $20,000. And if you look at the census data for our community, it really doesn't reflect the demographics that we experience in our schools. And I think that's a direct reflection of perhaps undercounting in the last census, and it does matter, and it impacts our funding, not only to our schools through federal channels, but also our social and human service agencies, which I argue we need now more than ever. So I do hope that the community and Williamsburg, James City County in particularly actively participates in the complete count effort to count everybody and our schools. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Young?
I think they announced the other night at the SEAC meeting that this month is recognizing children and families with disabilities. And so, do you remember what that was called, Kara? It was Disability
Awareness Month.
Was last month?
No. It's March.
It's next month.
Yeah,
so,
right.
I mean, and I've already started to see some information. I've heard some information on TV already talking about it, so.
Thank you, Ms. Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to recognize we have two Boy Scouts in the audience, and they're working on their Citizenship and the Community Merit Badge. Pleased to have them with us today. From Troop 414, it's Gavin Asbell, and from Troop 103, it's Simon Giesemann. And just to share a little bit about what they have to do to earn the Citizenship and the Community Merit Badge, they're to attend a meeting of your City Council, County Board of Supervisors, or School Board, and choose one of the issues discussed at the meeting where a difference of opinion was expressed, and explain to your counselor why you agree with one opinion more than the other. So we need to be on our best behavior today because they'll be taking notes. All right, so thank you guys for being here and choosing us over those other options. And once you earn that merit badge, I hope that you'll come back and show it to us and wear it proudly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dowell. Ms. Hummel?
I would like to just announce that the WJCC Foundation is having their awards ceremony, the big reveal of all of the innovative teaching grants. It's going to be Tuesday morning, February 25th at 8 o'clock at Berkeley Middle School is where we're going to start. And then we're going to go on 2 different buses and go around to all the different schools, and all the teachers will be surprised by seeing who gets these wonderful innovative teaching grants. So we're very excited about the event. And in a subsequent meeting, the WJCC Foundation is actually going to come to a meeting and give a short little overview of the award ceremony with some pictures and maybe a full reporting of how much money was spent by the foundation to improve education in WJCC.
Well, that's always a fun day, and it's such a great partnership with the community. Okay, unless there are additional comments, we are moving on to recognition of students.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Beers.
I'm sorry. I as an ex officio member of the WHRO board, I had the opportunity to attend the Scripps Spelling Bee contest at WHRO this Saturday. There were 53 students, middle school students from 53 schools, all up and down and around our region. And I am very proud to say that we had 2 of those 53 were from 2 of our middle schools. Now, they taped the bee, as they call it. They taped the bee, and it was not shown live because there are regional contests all across the country, and they want to use the same words. So, as much as I would like to tell you how things came out, I am sworn to secrecy, but you'll hear about it at the next board meeting. But I have to say, so much of my research when I was at William & Mary focused on spelling and how kids learn to spell, and I never really, I wasn't really impressed by the use of spelling bees. But I must tell you, watching these, and they were some of the tiniest middle schoolers I've ever seen. They're not the tallest, they're not the fastest, they're not the strongest, but there were a lot of really bright kids that were very impressive. Very, it was really changed my thinking entirely. So I was glad to see. But you'll hear sometime in the not too distant future our 2 folks.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Okay, moving on to recognitions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight we are proud to recognize 7 female athletes from Lafayette for being named to the National Field Hockey Coaches Association's High School Academic Squad. This program acknowledges high school juniors and seniors who've achieved a minimum unweighted cumulative grade point average of 3.50 out of 4.0 during the same semester as their sports season. One of these ladies is also being celebrated as a Scholar of Distinction for earning 3.9 out of 4.0 unweighted grade point average. Students, as your name is called, please join us at the front to be recognized. Sophie Contrucci, the Scholar of Distinction. Jolene Dotree. Taylor Thomas. Hallie Gentry. Sophie Stoddard. Kayla Ward. Janessa Cole. Congratulations to these young ladies for this outstanding accomplishment. Keep up the great work. And Coach Enstrom, can you please join the team members for the group photograph?
Five point two, school spotlight is Lafayette High School.
Tonight, the school spotlight shines on Lafayette High School, where students are challenged to think big about their plans after high school. Dr. Daniel Mayani, principal of Lafayette High, is here this evening to tell us about a program that is bringing staff and the community together to support students and their big ideas. Thank you and welcome, Dr. Mayani.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school board, and Dr. Herron. My name is Dan Mayani, and I have the privilege of serving as the principal of Lafayette High School. Since high school is the last stop before college, a career, or the military, we want to make sure we expose students to potential career tracks. At the same time, we value the opportunity to work with the local community and local colleges. Tonight, we want to showcase a lecture series titled Think Big Friday. Think Big Friday is a lecture series designed to motivate and inspire students to think about their options for potential careers and next steps after high school. The lecture series would not be possible without the Leadership Development Program in Williamsburg. The program is a network of local retired and semi-retired professionals who mentor MBA students at the College of William & Mary's Mason School of Business. The group is led by Dr. Mohan Peter, who is a retired cardiac surgeon and entrepreneur and currently an adjunct professor at the business school. When Dr. Peter expressed interest in bringing some of the elements of what they do at the college level to the high school level, he and his colleagues first approached Lafayette, which we are truly grateful for. We thought it might fit well within our MTSS Tier 1 goals that focus on our core beliefs as Rams. Rams are respectful, accountable, motivated, and safe. Since we wanted to tie the speaker series to our MTSS program, we passed the idea to Mr. Mark Ekstrom, Lafayette math teacher and MTSS coach. Mr. Ekstrom has been responsible for coordinating with Dr. Peter and promoting the program. He has taken the program and run with it, making the core value of being motivated central to the lecture series. I'd like to invite Mr. Ekstrom to the podium to discuss the process.
Well, how do you get a student's attention? Well, that's one of the big challenges of Think Big Friday. We used our Friday AEP, our academic enrichment period, to showcase our presenters. It's 30 minutes, and students have time to either meet with their teachers, catch up on homework, attend meetings, especially Friday is for clubs and meetings. And the challenge is they have choices, and so to get kids to come listen to adults talk about life has been probably our biggest messaging challenge, if you can imagine. But thankfully, we have a building full of experts at getting students' attention. So to keep up awareness and to convey how special our special guests are, We use mass messaging. We have announcements over the speakers. We have video announcements. We have emails, especially to teachers. And during staff meetings, we recruit the teachers' help in getting kids to come listen to these talks. And after hearing a few speakers, myself, hearing them say, "You can do great things." You know, it all started here for me in high school. That's when the title, Think Big Friday, really came to me, and I thought that captured, come to a lecture series that doesn't quite have the draw as Think Big. And so we've run with that, and some of our attendance last spring was in the single digits, and more recently in November and December, we had 20, 30, 40 kids there, and we've had a wonderful variety. Students have benefited from hearing the speakers with careers such as, we've had a retired U.S. Army general who's actually returning for our spring premiere, March 13th. Also a U.S. Navy pilot who decided she didn't want a desk job. She was going to fly jets, and then went on to a career as a lobbyist, worked with John Warner, and then worked on Capitol Hill for many years. Human resource executive, we've had an artist who gave a fantastic talk just in December from the Muscarelli, an engineer, a NASA engineer who worked on the Mars project, advertising agency executive. We've had someone recently from Centera to talk about surgical services and all the different medical careers. So there's really been a wide variety of people. And I would say don't take my word for it, but we asked a few of the students to talk about their experiences. So we have a short video to show.
What I love about Think Big Friday at Lafayette High School is that it just gets students to put on the brakes a little. And so much of our day-to-day routine is about that next assignment, that next test. Teachers and students, we're just thinking day-to-day. Think Big Friday brings in speakers and asks students to think about where they're going. What happens after school? Where am I headed? What's going to help me get there? I like to say, to do extraordinary things, sometimes we need to meet extraordinary people first. And the mentorship program at the Mason School of Business at William & Mary has brought in a really impressive list. We have people from the public sector, private sector, military, healthcare, business, the arts, science and engineering, and students are coming on their own accord. We're not telling students to come to these, but we're trying to pique their interest, and we've gotten some good feedback. Here's just a few of the speakers that came last fall to our school and some of the students' reactions.
I attended Tom Number's presentation, who is an environmental engineer. And the reason why I wanted to go to his presentation is because I'm majoring in engineering, and so I wanted to see if this was a field that interests me. But one thing I learned, this is a fast-growing field, so there's like a lot of advancements when it comes to finding new energy sources and conserving energy. And I think like other people should attend this because they can be exposed to the components that go into the upkeeping of our environment.
Attended a lecture from Miss Sharon Wood Dunn. I wanted to attend her lecture because I really knew nothing about human resources, and when she talked, she really went into details about what she did. I learned that there's a lot of benefits that come from her job, and that they all include traveling. I wanted to attend her session because she really explained a lot from her career to creating her own small business, and this really had me realize my future and what I wanted to do. I learned to open up my options and that new opportunities could always come. I hope everyone else would want to attend a lecture like this so they could open up their options too.
It was about an artist. He did photography on cultural differences and supporting his culture and just getting it out there, what divides us and how we can get closer together. I thought it was interesting just for the fact that it's bringing in an artist from the outside that is professional and he's got experiences, and I thought it'd be interesting to further my artistic pursuit.
think it's really kind of these people to take time out of their lives and come and talk to us here at Lafayette. I think it's a great opportunity for us students to hear these people's stories and learn that there's a life after school and that it's important for us to set goals and have dreams for ourselves while we're here.
You can see the speakers themselves have been excellent, and the format has allowed for lengthy question and answer sessions. Although each weekly topic is unique, as you've seen, our students have some common takeaways. One, career paths are not linear. Successful people often change direction, either by choice or by accident. Two, interests and passions began in high school, which turned into successful careers. And three, success often comes to those with good habits and those that are disciplined and persevere. Our hope is to provide faculty, staff, and students with a list of speakers well in advance, increase the enthusiasm for the series within departments that have courses that speak to specific careers, and to give students an opportunity to provide us with feedback about each session so we can enhance the sessions. We're thankful for the support of the Leadership Development Program in Williamsburg, led by Dr. Moanne Peter, and are proud to offer such a unique experience for our Lafayette Rams. Thank you for the opportunity for us to showcase our school this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Miami and Mr. Ekstrom. Are there questions? Ms. Hummel?
I have to say, I work at the business school, and I've known Dr. Peters for over 10 years, and the executive part, I know all those people that were showing up. The executive partners at the business school are 140 active and retired executives that move into the Williamsburg area and have such wonderful backgrounds to share with our MBA students and our one-year master students who pay big bucks to come to our school, and the secret sauce is the executive partner leadership program. So I just think this is wonderful that these individuals, in addition, and they all are volunteers, and they volunteer to mentor, to coach our students that are grad students and undergrad students. I just think it's wonderful that they are going deeper into the community and trying to touch the lives of the high school students as well. So I was just delighted and totally surprised. I didn't even know they were doing this. So I'm so pleased that our business school is working with the school system in this way.
How long have you been doing this?
Yeah, we just hit about the year mark. We started in the spring, so we did a spring and fall. I'd say our pilot is now over, and we're launching on March 13th.
Right. And so my question is, we heard some wonderful feedback from you and from the students. Can you tell me a little bit about or tell us about the feedback you've been getting from the partners? As Ms. Hummel said, they're used to working with undergraduate and graduate students. This must be somewhat of a different experience. So I'm curious what you've heard from them.
Yes, well, they all have been, first of all, gracious to come to the school. And by the way, AEP was at, I don't remember, 7:20 in the morning last spring. So a lot of these people are getting up at dark 30 to get to Lafayette on time.
We don't schedule anything for them at that
Yeah. And now of course, it's at 10:20. Feedback, mostly positive, especially immediate feedback. The speakers are so glad they came. Whether there were 3 kids there or there were 30 kids there, there's just been some very engaging conversations. All it takes is one, impressive student to ask the right questions, and they're. So I think every speaker has been glad they did it, and then we've had several repeats from the spring. I think 3 spring speakers have come back. General Harrison, who spoke last April, is now speaking on March 13th. And then, of course, the somewhat less than positive feedback is, could we get more students? And that, of course, is a challenge. And I've had people from counseling, guidance counselors say, we experience the same thing with many things, including scholarships. We have companies coming in, we have these things to offer students, and, people are busy and their attention is pulled 100 different ways, and plus apathy works in there. So getting more people to come, just will be a constant challenge. And they express their desire to have a few more students come this spring, so we're working on.
Ms. Young?
I applaud this program because I applaud this because I believe that students need to find out, there is a gateway at the end of 4 years, they're leaving. And I don't think they always understand that as they're, as you're in high school, you're kind of, like you said, pulled every which way. But I do think that's wonderful. And I have a name for you. It's just let me know at the end.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to give me a nickname.
No, if I did, it would be wonderful.
And I do think, I appreciate Ms. Hummel's words, and I do just want to express gratitude toward Dr. Peter and the whole program. He also has two, board members or whatever, executive committee members. Those three, I think, thought, what else can we do? Thought about the high schools, reached out to us. And then I give credit to MTSS. Really, their request might have fallen on deaf ears with all the busyness of the school day, but with the MTSS mission and also the Lafayette-specific mission of motivation, well, yes, this fits in. Let's bring this in. Let's, water the seeds and see if we can make this work. And so far, success.
Has there been any discussion about expanding it to all the high schools? Or is it?
Well,
or is it just too soon to talk about that?
I think it was expressed as we'll start with you, and but I don't know if Dr. Peter's ready to launch 3 different series, so that would be a question for you.
And then I just wanted to say, have we reached out to parents to let them know, to help them encourage their students?
That's our next step. Now that we've gotten it kind of situated and have a good schedule and a routine, we're going to start putting it out more publicly in our parent newsletter that we put out, put it on the website, promote it more so that they know who's coming in advance. When it first started, it was kind of just trying to get it started and let's get in the building and try to make it work. Some teachers have taken the ball and run with it as well. We've had other departments bring in different members, even from our facilities, to talk to students about different jobs they have in the school division where you're not a teacher or an administrator, but we've had plumbers come in, electricians, all of those different occupations, just of teachers on their own motivation. So it's kind of evolved, but in terms of this particular series, yeah, we're working in the spring to make sure that we can get that schedule out in advance to build the capacity of it.
That's great. And then food, I know is expensive, but food always gets students.
Yes, that's true. That might be, I was thinking about the grant, the Williamsburg Foundation grants. That might be good.
Dr. Beers?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really exciting is that you're providing opportunities for people in the community, not just Williamsburg, but up and down the peninsula, who can come in and talk to students and help those students become aware of the fact that their careers, their opportunities, their jobs, not very far from where they live. And that's a big challenge in a lot of areas where if there's not enough of that commitment and interaction with potential employees, they go elsewhere looking for jobs. So I think this is really it's wonderful. It's really a great idea.
One of the most common questions asked, not every time, is how much money do you make? And that's answered, of course, with tact, but it does get their attention. Right?
Not an unimportant piece of information, to be sure.
Oh, Ms. Young?
You might want to have somebody come in and talk about taxes.
This is true.
Okay. Thank you again for presenting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6.0, this is an opportunity for citizens who have turned in a speaker card to speak to the board. I will turn it over to Mr. Kelly, who will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is at this point in our meeting where citizens are invited to address the board. Those citizens desiring to speak should have submitted speaker cards to the clerk prior to the start of tonight's meeting. These speakers are asked to come to the podium when their names are called, state their names for the record, and direct their comments to the chair of the board. It is the board's interest and desire that all comments are heard and respected. Hence, citizens are asked to not engage in applauding, verbal outbursts, or any type of other demonstrations during the presentations. Personnel matters are not considered in public meetings. Therefore, the board requests that all speakers refrain from making reference to specific individuals in any form or fashion. Though the board does not respond to your comments during the meeting, your comments are being heard and appreciated. Each speaker is allocated 3 minutes to make their presentation. The board asks that you respect this time limitation. Also, please be reminded that no time may be yielded to another speaker. Your acceptance and adherence to these guidelines will be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Madam Chair. My instructions are concluded.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ms. Hummel?
Timothy Byrd.
For y'all. First off, I want to thank y'all for giving me this opportunity to speak with y'all tonight. My name is Timothy Byrd. If y'all heard, I'm a former security officer at War Hill High School from last February until this past, I believe, October. I am here speaking on my behalf because of I was terminated over an incident that I believe was a little, I didn't do, the process to me it was a little unfair. And I did miss the timetable of appealing. I did miss the timetable of, making my voice heard. But after some self-thought and praying and speaking with some individuals connected to the school, nobody that works there, I'll put that out there. It was parents and students who reached out to me. I realized that me wanting to be a part of WJCC is not for me. It's bigger than me. I believe that I had an impact on a lot of those children's lives who don't get to see that love and don't get to see the support. I can name a few incidents where a few students did come to me for personal reasons that they wasn't getting at home and didn't feel that love. And I took it personal. I do this, I've been a part of the community mentoring for about 6 or 7 years now down in Hampton and Newport News. That's where I live at. And, I'm a football coach, I'm a mentor, I go to schools, I speak. And this is my passion, is the youth. I worked in the Newport News shipyard for 10 years, and I thought that was what I was going to be. It was a shipbuilder. But when I got involved with the youth, I realized that my destiny, my passion were the kids, and that's why I'm here today. Because it's bigger than me wanting to just be, it's bigger than me with a paycheck. It's not just a paycheck for me. It is, I have children of my own, I have 2 kids, and if I wasn't in their life, I would love for somebody to be there for my children. Every child that I spoke with during the school years, I knew them personally. I took it upon myself to get to know them. Faculty, I don't think I ever had an incident where I came across somebody wrong. So this is my formal request. This is a letter I've written out, and I would like for you guys to read it too.
You can give it to Ms. Surza, and she'll make sure that the board gets it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I have Siobhan Myers?
How are you doing today? I'm a little nervous.
It's okay.
So are we.
Yeah.
My name is Hvac Myers. I am enrolled in War Hill High School. I'm currently right now a senior, and so I'm a senior at War Hill. I go to War Hill High School. I'm graduating this year. I'll probably do the shipyard when I graduate, so I could help me, family, all that stuff. But what I hear talk about is the impact that Mr. Byrd had on my life so far. I feel like he's more than just a security guard that go to War Hill. Like, it's easy for me to open up to him more than like my counselor, because he can understand where I'm coming from. Like, I was born and raised in Jamaica, so it's pretty hard down there, if y'all know Jamaica. So he basically understands where I'm coming from, like stuff I do, stuff I go through, and it's easy for me to talk to him like about anything. And basically like a father figure that I never had because I never really had a dad growing up. And he basically have a huge impact on my life. And if it wasn't for him today, I wouldn't be attending Warrior High School. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Latoya Intlabadi.
Good afternoon to the board. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Latoya Nabati, and I am a mother of 3, including a student that goes to War Hill. When I learned that the security officer was terminated, I was disheartened because as a mother of 3 and in grad school, oftentimes I have neglected to be there to support my son whenever he needed it, and sometimes when he needed it the most. With different altercations, just going through life as a teenager, I wasn't available many times, and his father either. He was able to oftentimes go to the security officer, Tim Bird, and speak to him. He was much like a father figure, kind of like took him under his wing. There's been times when I've been absent-minded and forgot to put money on his lunch, account, and he's made sure that he's had something to eat. And the impact that he's made on not only his life but other students in that school is phenomenal in this day and age. To give yourself as a servant to teenagers is a pretty hard feat. I mean, I take care of adults, but I don't know, if I could really take care of children like that. So I'm just here to say that he was a phenomenal person. He's impacted my son's life, and I'm sure he's impacted other students' lives. Since his termination, my son has voiced that the school has just been different. His environment is different. And so I just wanted to let you guys know that and hopefully support a reconsideration.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's Brendan Moore.
Good evening, members of the chair. Tim Bird was many things to us in the War Hill community. Not only was he a security member, but he was a father figure to many who never had one. He protected us in many ways that no one else could. He comforted us in many ways that no one was able to. He understood what many of us went through that no one else went through. It was always fun going to school when he was around. Someone to have a conversation with when no one else was there to have a conversation with me. Whenever I felt down and low and just depressed, I was able to talk to him, to voice my feelings when my parents weren't around or my counselor didn't understand. And ever since he's been gone, it was as if something was different about War Hill. There have been more fights, more depression in the students. It wasn't as joyful to come to school. And just like we had a gap in all of us, and Mr. Bird was there to fill in that gap. And since he hasn't been here, that gap has just gotten wider and wider. So that's all I've had to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Kim Hunley.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board. Ooh, I have all these hearts on today, and my heart is just racing right now. I know this is board appreciation, and so I just wanted you to know, as acting president this year, that that we do appreciate everything you do. We know we're getting ready to get into budget time, and Dr. Herron's going to unveil her budget, and so I'm looking forward to seeing that. And you've always supported the budget and supported us, and we'll be here to support you as well and let you know our thoughts. Also have brought some of my exec board members with me tonight. We just taught all day, and then we had a meeting, a members meeting, and then we're here tonight. And a lot of times you don't see a lot of teachers here, but we do care. I heard the gentleman from Lafayette talk about students being pulled all different kinds of ways, but we are pulled different ways as well. And I appreciate, I wanted to say that Mr. Dowell did come to Stonehouse, and I know he's like, she made me stand up and raise my hand, but it's very important. That's how we roll at Stonehouse, that relationships are very important, and I wanted him to meet his peeps that he'd be serving. And definitely you all have always done right by us, and I have missed coming, but I'm winding down, as you know, to retire at the end of the year, and so the best way to do that was cold turkey and just to pull myself back. But I couldn't miss this opportunity to come and say thank you for what you all do for our students. We just have a small gift of appreciation. It's everybody, well, not everybody loves chocolate, I'm making that assumption, but most people love chocolate, and tried to do a variety of chocolates, because I do believe, even in Williamsburg, James City County, as you know, you all serve a variety of people, all kinds, from parents to the community to the teachers to, everybody is in there, the children. And so it was important to me that you got a variety, because we have to remember that. And with this being Black History Month and also Valentine's Day, I just wanted to end with this quote, and it's by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and anytime I think of love, I do think of him and what he stood for. And I think I read this last year as well, but it's just so poignant, is that everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. So once again, I hope to come back at the end in May to introduce you to, I believe we'll have a president, vice president, and a full slate. And I look forward to introducing you to them, those teachers, and we will, that's never happened to me. I haven't practiced. But anyway, we look forward to seeing you in May.
Thank you. We've missed you. Okay. Moving on to item 7.1, the consent agenda. A motion to approve.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented this evening.
Second.
Do you want me to read every one of them?
I'll read it.
Seconded.
I'll read each one, and then we can if there's any discussion. 7.1, approval of minutes from 1/21/20 to February 4th, 20. Financial report and monthly bills and payroll for January 2020. 7.3, personnel actions. 7.4, resolution R-5-20, school social work week. Item 7.5, resolution R-6-20, national foreign language week. Item 7.6, retire policy GBCE, drug and alcohol testing of motor vehicle operators. Item 7.7, new policy GDQ, drug and alcohol testing for motor vehicle operators. Item 7.8, revised policy KL, public concerns and complaints. And item 7.9, revised policy KMA, relations with parents and organizations. If there's any question?
Ms. Hummel.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mrs. Young.
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye.
Ms. Ownby.
Aye. Action items, 8.1, approval of the 2020 and 2021 school calendar. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the 2020-21 academic calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
I believe we have some additional information before we discuss?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Murphy's here to provide a little bit of feedback on the survey or the input we got on the proposed calendar before the board considers the calendar this evening. Dr. Murphy, thank you.
All right, well, good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Herron. Tonight, I would like to share with you some of the feedback that we received from our community on the draft academic calendar for 2021 and 21-22. Please recall at the last meeting I shared with you the draft of the calendar that was developed in conjunction with the Williamsburg-James City County Calendar Committee and a regional calendar committee composed of representatives from Hampton, Newport News, Poquoson, Gloucester, and York. And above are the parameters that we developed the calendar on. Since our last meeting, the calendar was posted for 8 days asking for feedback, and the summary was provided to the calendar committee and superintendent for their review. We had a total of 382 comments that were shared. For the 2021 calendar, 225 comments came in, and they were overall very, very positive feedback for the draft calendar. There were some recurring themes that I want to bring up, and that was concerning questions about work days, back to school nights, and early release days. For the most part, the secondary big theme was they want to get out of school. They would like us to try to get out of school earlier in June. From the 21-22 calendar, we had another 157 comments. Again, the majority of the comments were in support of the post-Labor Day start. From the responses, there were also some minor details that were updated from the original draft calendar. Second semester on the 2021 calendar, back to school night was added to that calendar in February. On the 21-22 calendar, for the first semester, the back to school night was added. And also on the 21-22 calendar, an additional early release day was added for middle school and high school exams on that occur in June. Based on the level of satisfaction reported from the survey, we do not recommend any further changes to the draft calendar as submitted. Any questions?
Yeah, questions, discussion? Ms. Young?
Dr. Murphy, thank you so much for all of the effort and work that goes into doing the calendar. I do want to concur with the comments about that 2-week vacation, that 2-week time off for our teachers. I mean, one of the things that I heard over and over is they didn't realize, I think this is the first time in several years that they've had the full 2 weeks. They didn't realize how much better they felt and how much more rejuvenated they were and how much it just kind of perked them up. So as we continue going forth with the developing calendars, I hope that will be taken into consideration in the future also.
Questions, comments?
I appreciate all the work that went into putting the 2021 academic calendar. I just want to voice that moving forward, and I can understand why we're not changing the Labor Day, pre-Labor Day start time. But I do think it's important when we look at the regional calendar and the students that are impacted. It looks like when I added everything up from the school board that you're talking about 174 students out of our entire population that are impacted in some way, shape, or form by having to stay with a regional calendar if the region is not the same as our local school calendar. And so I just wanted to say that as a school board member, I think it's important to look at the impact for the greater population rather than a very small population, and what is the best impact for the greatest good. And that's just my personal opinion, that I do think when you're talking, and we're talking like 27 Governor School kids, 106 CTE kids, 10 at the Center of Autism, 10 at New Horizons Newport Academy. I'm just wondering if moving forward, we can't think of ways to accommodate those 174 students and still have a better outcome for the larger community.
Mr. Kelly?
I'm going to kind of jump off from where Ms. Hummel was going there. So we have fought for decades to get the permission for the pre-Labor Day start, and now that the General Assembly has told us that we can, we say, well, never mind. In the past few years, we haven't had, I hate to say this, we haven't had a lot of snow days or hurricane days. And so we always talked about, and I understand not having the ability to get first semester finished before Christmas with only given, I don't know, I guess they gave us a week or 2 weeks before Labor Day, and you had to have the 4-day holiday at Labor Day, et cetera. So you can't get you can't pull the end of first semester to before Christmas, and I kind of get that. But it is, in those years where we had a lot of school outs, we always had that pressure, are we going to go to school on Saturday? Are we going to do other things? That we could take some of that pressure off if we started before Labor Day. And so I agree with 2021, certainly not starting before Labor Day because, people have got vacation plans and things. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to put a signal what we're going to do for the 21-22 so that as this summer comes and people start making plans for the next summer that they have that. So our draft calendar here shows after Labor Day. Okay, I guess, but I've always just had the concern about the pressure on our calendar, and so there was pressure when we gave Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and now we're giving 2 weeks at Christmas at the end of the year, and so if we start getting a little frosty or a little hurricane coming through, that's going to put a lot more pressure on us, and I just think kind of. And then if you go think deeper than that, if we get away from our agrarian calendar and kind of go to more of an all-year school, if we can't start before Labor Day here, can you imagine what that's going to look like when we're trying to go to school in July and have all of December off, or that kind of thing? So it's I don't know. I guess the regional calendar committee has said that they're agreeable to starting after, their consensus is to start after Labor Day in 21-22. I just think we should think about that.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Dr. Beers?
Yeah. I think just a couple of things. I think the school system is managed quite well with a post Labor Day start for quite a few years. So I'm not as inclined to make that change so that we start before Labor Day. And I think the other thing I would put in, Dr. Murphy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption is that the regional task force or calendar committee, the members are all aware of these kinds of things and that we're talking about here because they're talking about them in their school systems as well. So I'm confident that when the region looks at the kinds of issues that we're talking about here, not unlike some issues some of the other places, that they will take into consideration those 150. They have students like that as well. So, and there's time to and I think it's that I do support a regional approach. See, I guess we'll see what's the best.
That's accurate.
Dr. Beers, Mr. Dowell?
Yeah, I did want to echo the thank yous from the board. I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into putting together a calendar and to forecast what the needs of the district might be, and and to take into account the needs and desires of a region. As far as the conversation pre-Labor Day, post-Labor Day, I'm of the opinion that what is best for the student, that's what we should be leaning towards. I'm hearing from students, being on one student advisory council. These are very talented, very driven students. They want to be able to compete. And to be able to compete from their perspective, it means taking these courses earlier and taking the examinations, the SAT, the AP, and being able to prepare for those in the same manner that other students in the region are. So I'm in favor of whatever is good for the students and how you get us there. So thank you. I appreciate that. From our previous discussion in the last meeting, I was asking about election days, November election day, and why we weren't considering a full day away from school for our students, at least at a minimum for primary days in June. Ms. Hummel and I were able to have 2 school tours, Stonehouse Elementary and Norwich Elementary, and just asking general questions about what it looks like at their sites on election day. And it's challenging, it's very difficult, and it's not difficult from the perspective of parents of students that attend those schools, but of the community at large that comes in and they're there to vote. And so they do very well at keeping them wrangled, going in one direction, out the next. But the concern is of that person that's not going to abide by the guidelines. And you can't really predict when that's going to happen, when that person's going to come in with an agenda. That's my concern. That's the concern of many, many parents of the Stonehouse District. And so I appreciate what you've got here, and I'm willing to support it. As we look at calendars in the future, I would like if we can build in a consideration for our primary election days as well, especially with our polarized political system as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dowell. Ms. Young?
I was just going to say, I would really like to see a draft calendar that proposed a calendar with a pre-Labor Day start. We haven't seen that. And I think sometimes, we're so used to this type of calendar, sometimes we just have to kind of rip off the Band-Aid and see what else can happen. And one of the things that I heard you say is that people would like an earlier end of school year. Well, that isn't going to happen if we keep using this kind of school calendar. So, I mean, maybe when you go to the regional school calendar, can you at least ask them to think about proposing a draft calendar that starts before Labor Day and see how that works out? Because that, as Mr. Dow said, that might be best for our students. And, a lot of the board members have talked about tonight about pre-Labor Day start. So I would love to see a draft calendar that proposed that.
We developed 3 draft calendars for 21-22 and we brought them all to the Williamsburg-James City County Calendar Committee, and the post-Labor Day is the one that was preferred by the Williamsburg Committee. So there are draft calendars for post-Labor Day, pre-Labor Day starts, but when we brought them back to the committee for their preference, the preference landed on the post.
I'd sure like to see them.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's my turn. So I think I just would like to echo what many of my colleagues have said. I'm definitely in favor of trying to align with the community college system, and I recognize with the current language in the legislation, we can't get there. We can't end the semester at December, but I think that is what's best for students. And so I'm hoping that there are advocates out there, the VAS, the superintendents, folks who can talk to the legislators to finesse that language so that we can do that. But short of that, I think the consensus from our community has been that folks want to end school earlier. And even if we start a little bit earlier, it allows our students more time to study for those critical exams. And so our students have said that, and our families have said that. And I don't think there's compelling evidence that says we must stay with the regional calendar. I would, like Ms. Young said, I would like to see the various calendars that were proposed for 21 and 22. My concern is with that particular calendar, and it's just been brought to my attention, the first day of school is Rosh Hashanah. And so those students won't be going to school. And for some students, that's their first day of high school or their first day of kindergarten or their first day of middle school. And so the only way to address that is if we back it up. I mean, that's the Jewish New Year. So I think we have time to kind of to work through that, but I would like to see more options because we have time for more options. And then just building on some of the SBQs that school board members have asked, and we've gotten additional information. I would like a better understanding if we do move away from the regional calendar, how does that impact like sports? That was not considered, like how, other teams that we play. If we're on a different calendar than the rest of the region, how does that impact our athletes or our band students?
Or anything, yeah.
And then if we start earlier, how does that impact our athletes and our band students who typically go back to school August 1? So I would like to know what that looks like if we start earlier.
I'm sorry, just Rosh Hashanah. Does the calendar committee consider the holy days of the major religions worldwide when putting together the calendar? Is that something that's sort of...
We acknowledge that there's holidays that go on in the time period, but we do not build our calendar based on religious holidays. No, no.
Well, that's
Yeah, I
not
think
exactly
that's
true.
yeah.
But we do.
We have breaks.
Right.
Yeah, we have breaks, but we won't prefer or even label one religion over another religion because there's several holidays that occur throughout the year that we won't even acknowledge.
I would struggle to support a calendar that the first day of school was on a high holy day of a major religion. I would struggle with that.
Especially when we have the flexibility to address that. I mean, I think that's an easy fix. We have the flexibility to do that.
But our 21, 22, we're on a timeline for that, right? So we have to, from my sake, from my thoughts, if we're going to start before Labor Day on 21, 22, we have until the end of school to make that commitment. So I mean, we're on a little bit of a crunch here because it is March, so we got to kind of come together with our thinking on that, particularly, and we really need to make sure that we're very considered about going off of the regional calendar. So that's not something that a decision that we should make lightly, because that not only affects our students, but it affects our employers and the people in the region who work outside of WJCC, and those kids are in school and are out of school, and so that there's secondary impacts to that beyond just our schools and our kids. So I mean, I think I would really kind of struggle to go off of a regional calendar, but something we can consider, but that has to be made with some pretty heavy thought behind it.
With that comment in mind, I'm curious as to how the school boards of York County and like our neighboring school boards are responding to the regional calendar, if some of them have the same reservations that we have. And I don't know, other than the news or watching school board meetings, I don't know is that something a school board question for someone to?
So someone we certainly can. There's a lot of great discussion and questions tonight surrounding the calendar, not for next year, but for the year after. And point is well taken. If we are even going to consider a major change, we need to come back to you with some of the discussion that you've talked about tonight and bring some more information and perhaps some options for not next year, but the year after. So I think Dr. Murphy's work with the calendar will continue. And we will be inviting him back again to present some information to you with more detail and options for your consideration in public as we move forward into the year after consideration as well.
Dr. Beers?
Yeah, as a member of that committee, the first thing I have to say is Dr. Murphy has stayed on top of just about every kind of comment that we've heard tonight. and the members of that committee and their teachers and administrators take that really seriously. And we had extensive discussions, and it is very challenging given the constraints that the state puts us on. I agree with, entirely that whatever we do, we want it to be the best thing for students. And I think right now, that's sort of where we are. We're still working on it. And I had no idea. I mean, of course I had no idea. If you haven't been on the calendar committee, you have no idea how complex and the kinds of questions that get raised. I mean, it was a wonderful education for me to realize that it's not, these are not snap decisions.
Our Boy Scouts can forward their thoughts too.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. And thank you, Dr. Murphy, for all your work.
All right.
We do definitely appreciate that. We look forward to seeing you again.
I look forward to it.
Thank you. So, there is a motion on the floor.
The calendar for 2021.
Have a second. Any additional comments, discussion? That was Ms. Surza.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Dr. Beers,
Aye.
Ms. Cook,
Aye.
Mr. Dowell,
Aye.
Ms. Hummel,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Omby.
Aye. Moving on to information and discussion items. The superintendent's proposed operating budget for 2020 and 2021. But before I do that, Mr. Kelly.
I can go first because it always takes Mrs. Cook a long time to find hers. As a member of the School Board of Williamsburg, James City County, I acknowledge that I have an interest in the fiscal year 2021 school budget because my wife is an employee of the WJCC schools. However, I believe that I'm able to participate in the consideration of and vote on the budget fairly in the public interest.
Mr. Kelly, Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a member of the School Board of Williamsburg, James City County, I acknowledge that I have an interest in the fiscal year 2021 school budget because I'm an employee of the Williamsburg Health Foundation. However, I believe I'm able to participate in the consideration of and vote on the budget fairly and in the public's interest.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Dr. Herron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're delighted this evening to present the Superintendent's proposed budget. This budget proposal supports almost 12,000 students, including pre-K, 16 schools, and over 1,700 employees. Our schools are an integral part of the City of Williamsburg and James City County. We are fortunate to have the strong support of our community, business leaders, families, and elected officials. The City of Williamsburg and James City County, our funding partners, have consistently invested in our schools, our teachers, and our students, and we are very grateful for their ongoing support. In fact, we rely on their support, as WJCC Schools only receives about 26% of its funding from the state, and federal funding provides less than 0.5% of WJCC's annual operating revenue. Our strong partnership with James City County and the City of Williamsburg ensures a quality education is provided for all students in WJCC schools, and I'm proud to say that they receive a strong return on their investment. We are fully accredited, and we are one of a handful of school divisions that have earned state accreditation for 12 consecutive years. The proposed budget builds upon that history of achievement. Fiscal year 21 proposed budget is purposefully aligned with the goals of the strategic plan, Elevate Beyond Excellence. Key priorities include employee compensation, meeting the needs of all students, safety and security, and most important of all, teaching and learning. Our greatest resource in WJCC schools is people. I'm referring to the committed employees of our school system. Going beyond excellence requires attracting and retaining great people, teachers, administrators, support employees, all of whom contribute to the positive environment that makes it possible for every student to learn. Providing fair compensation for all staff, especially for teachers who are at the heart of our mission, is a priority in this budget. Therefore, this budget includes an investment of $3 million in our valued employees to move us closer to the regional market average in salaries. It proposes a 3% pay raise for all, a step increase coupled with an average of 1.5% for teachers and 3% for all others. If we are to attract and retain the best employees, from teachers to bus drivers, we must compensate our employees fairly. This budget also sustains our investment in quality health insurance for employees. Currently, 27% of the operating budget is allocated to employee benefits, and more than $18 million of that directly supports health insurance. For each full-time employee with a family who participates, WJCC contributes over $18,000 per year. This is an important piece of the compensation puzzle that significantly benefits all those who choose to access it. This budget proposal is informed by data that has been presented in the budget workshops in January. For example, in teacher compensation, we are 6 out of 9 in the region in entry-level teacher salaries for new teachers with a bachelor's degree, and 9 out of 9 in entry-level teacher salaries with a master's degree. Also, the ratio of ESL teachers to students with a limited English proficiency is higher than our peer and regional school divisions, which is why we are proposing adding 3 ESL teachers. And those are just 2 examples of the data that we brought to you. Teaching and learning are at the heart of what we do. The proposed budget includes an additional $800,000 to fund instructional initiatives, programs, and additional instructional personnel. This budget also invests in educational equity. That is, making sure every student has what he or she needs to be successful. Over $1.1 million is invested in additional staff and resources to address the growing special education and English learner populations. Safety and security remain a priority for the school division, with over $700,000 invested in counselors, security officers, an LPN, and our security system. This is truly a budget of need. We know that with full funding, we will be able to meet the essential needs of our students and appropriately compensate our incredibly talented employees. Ms. Ewing, the Chief Financial Officer, will now join me in presenting the Superintendent's proposed budget this evening. If possible, I would like you to hold your questions until the end of the presentation so that we may lay out the plan in its entirety. Ms. Ewing.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. It is my pleasure to present to you this evening the Superintendent's proposed budget for fiscal year 21. As you know, considerable work has gone into developing the Superintendent's proposed budget. This fiscal year 21 plan is a balance of meeting established school board priorities related to the strategic plan, Elevate Beyond Excellence, a review of available revenue, and meeting the division needs for the upcoming fiscal year as outlined from each of our cost center managers. Throughout the budget process, school administration made decisions based on one overarching question: what is best for all students and staff? As you know, enrollment is a key component of the budget development process. Enrollment estimates drive our estimated revenue and our staffing model. We use FutureThink to assist and guide us with enrollment information and trends. This view provides a historical perspective with regard to enrollment within the division as of September 30th each year. Enrollment fluctuates daily, but September 30th is a benchmarking assessment for funding at the state level. Based on the low enrollment projection for fiscal year 21, we are anticipating a decrease of 59 students next year. Although the actual enrollment is projected to be down slightly next year, we need to remember that individual student needs are increasing. I would also like to mention that these enrollment numbers do not include preschool students, which total 395 each year. In addition to enrollment data, we use the strategic plan's principles and priorities to guide the development of the budget to ensure that the goals align with the plan and that it supports the needs and goals of the school division, taking into consideration the input of our stakeholders. Here's a look at the current revenue projection. It is slightly less than previously shared with you. Line items have been reviewed and compared to history, and some adjustments were necessary. Also, James City County has shared that they would no longer be utilizing our custodial staff to service their buildings. So we have a reduction of $125,000 for those payments and 2 fewer FTEs. This does not mean that anyone will be let go necessarily. We currently have vacant custodial positions, and we anticipate a simple change in assignment for those employees. Again, I want to remind you that we do not have a final state budget, so the top number could still change. We are using the governor's proposed budget, including sales tax, to build this plan. Here you will see the proposed expenditures related to Goal 1 of the strategic plan. As shared at previous meetings, this includes staff and resources to support classroom learning, manage student data, and the launch of an online college and career planning tool for students. Goal 2 of the strategic plan focuses on equity. Expenditure increases here are primarily for personnel to support the division's rapidly growing English learner and special education populations. Data demonstrates a critical need in these areas. In addition, a position to monitor and support the division and school-level implementation of the multi-tier system of supports. There are 2 items in the budget tied to Goal 3, communication and engagement. The first is a multi-language app that supports 2-way communication between teachers and non-English speaking families. And the second item is a web monitoring service to help ensure accessibility for all users in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. The safety and security of students and staff remain a priority as seen in Goal 4. The budget proposal includes 5 additional school counselors. You will recall that we need to hire 11 new counselors to meet a proposed state standard of 250 to 1 as proposed in the governor's budget for fiscal year 22. We are splitting the additional positions across both years of the biennium. Student health, safety, and wellness are addressed in this goal area with an increase to the middle school athletic trainer contract to provide a second trainer to cover our 4 middle schools and an itinerant nurse to provide coverage at school clinics. The network engineer will provide additional support to focus on security and prevention of cyber threats. Cyber threats continue to increase in the K-12 education area as the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center January report indicated a 31% increase in cyber attacks since December, continuing the trend as reported over the past 12 months. Finally, under this goal, we've included 2 security officers for middle schools so that there will be a full-time person at each middle school. In order to attract and retain high-quality employees and remain competitive with neighboring divisions, this budget proposal includes an average 3% salary adjustment for eligible employees. On this slide, you will also see the increase to our required employer VRS contribution totaling $850,000, as well as essential additions to building leadership, including 3 11-month APs at the high school level, a much-needed assistant principal for Bright Beginnings, and a new position, an elementary administrative intern. This person will split time between Matoka and Stonehouse elementary schools. As these schools are larger than 3 of our middle schools and currently have only 1 AP, this position will provide much-needed administrative support. The administrative intern position allows us to develop future building leaders through a Grow Your Own program. Teachers with an admin endorsement who are interested in becoming APs can apply for this 1-year assignment and have the opportunity to gain valuable practical experience. Looking at healthcare, about 1,400 employees participate in our health plan, so not every employee is impacted by changes to healthcare. Currently, the division is paying about 82% of the cost, and employees are paying approximately 18%. That will shift slightly with the annual renewal increase. The division will pay 79.4%, and employees will pay approximately 20.6%. Based on the plan selected by the employee, monthly premiums will increase between $17 and $65 per month. Moving on to budgetary expenditures related to Goal 6 of the strategic plan, you will see approximately $17,000 allocated for technology services. This covers an increase for data storage and other contractual service increases. Also in this area, you will see the cost for the placement of trailers at 2 schools and the addition of 2 buses to the replacement cycle. On this slide, you will see savings from reductions and attrition totaling just under $750,000. In addition, money was reallocated within individual cost centers as well to support the department's work without making a larger funding request. This graphic outlines that our focus is right where it should be, instruction. This graph represents our expenditures by function, and instruction makes up 73% of the total. And as you can see by this graph, 87% of our operating expenditures are spent on people, wages, and fringe benefits. In summary, our revenue increase based on the governor's budget is approximately $4.6 million. The expenditures we have outlined for you tonight total approximately $7.3 million. When you factor in the $750,000 in savings from realignment, efficiencies, and attrition, we need an additional $1,998,842 to fund this budget request, which is approximately a 2.3% increase from the localities. So where do we get the money in our operating fund? This graphic shows the breakdown of revenue received by funding source. In WJCC Public Schools, the majority of our funding, or 63%, is reliant on the support of the localities. Here you will see all funds for our current budget as well as the fiscal year 21 budget proposal. The total of all funds, including operating grants, state-operated programs, and child nutrition services funds, amounts to a total of $159,960,000. Overall, there is a $6.6 million increase year to year for the operating fund, of which $4.6 million is supported by increased state revenue, and the remaining $2 million will become a request for additional funding from the localities. When you consider the mandated expenditures and those essential expenditures to support equity, safety, and much-deserved employee compensation, we believe that request is very reasonable. Next steps in the budget development process include a public hearing on Dr. Herron's budget proposal on March 3rd. A joint meeting with our funding partners from the city and county is scheduled for March 13th. And the school board will discuss and approve a budget either March 17th or March 24th so that it can be delivered to the city and county by April 1st. That concludes our formal presentation of the superintendent's proposed fiscal year 21 budget plan.
Ms. Ewing. Comments? A lot to take in.
Thank you, Ms. Ewan. I understand that this proposed request is a 2.3% increase request from the localities over last year. Can you provide a history of kind of our average request increase? I don't know how to word it, but the average request from us as a percentage of, you know what I'm asking.
Yeah. On average, the increase has been about 2.7% for the last few years, not counting the year that James Blair opened.
So we're slightly so your recommendation is slightly under that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I would like to, read this cover to cover and send questions to you and share comments at our next meeting, which is when we're slated to discuss it. But I do want to pick up on something that Mrs. Young said at the last meeting, which is that she supported a larger increase in pay. And, I concur with her. I think what you said is 4%?
4%, yes.
Maybe not 4, maybe 3.5. But from my perspective, if we don't start to gain ground on our pay, it is less disruptive, in my view, to sustain and preserve a workforce than it is to lose a workforce and have to rebuild it. And so I think we have been lucky year after year to start the school year fully staffed or really, really close to that. And I think, I don't ever want to be in a position where that's no longer the case. And then we have to make up even more ground. And I know, Dr. Herron, you called this a budget of need, and I agree with you, but I think that we need to ask for what we believe that we need for this division, and to both preserve and build upon our excellence system. And I don't want to underpay teachers, and I think the data suggests that we, at the entry level, we might be doing that. And I think if we don't ask, we don't get it. If we ask and we don't get it, I think that's worth a conversation. And I want to allow the community to have that conversation. And if we ask and the community says, no, we really want to stick with a 3%, then so be it. But if we don't ask, we can't even have that conversation. And I think teacher pay is critical, and we should talk about it as a community. And I'd like to see us make headway regionally. So, and I'm not sure 3% is going to do that. So that's just my thinking.
Thank you.
I was going to just point out some of the things that some of the facts that you mentioned, that right now we're 6 out of 9 in our current locale with entry level for, I assume that's bachelor's. Second, we're 9 out of 9 for entry for teachers with a master's degree. And I remember when Mr. Baker was talking about if we wanted to start increasing that number, moving from 9 out of 9 to even 9 out of 8, we're going to have to increase pay. I know that is a struggle, but for me, we're asking our teachers to just absorb the 3.2% increase in healthcare costs during the next year. I prefer that we do it through compensation, because I'm a strong believer of building towards retirement. I know when you're 23 or 24 coming to work as a teacher, you don't think that far ahead, but pretty soon you're not there anymore. Pretty soon you're 55, and you're starting to think about retirement, if not even before that. So I would really like to pursue the 4%, and I do agree that unless we start asking for it, we're not going to get it. We need to have that conversation about retaining teachers, because as Ms. Cook so eloquently pointed out, that losing teachers is costly too, because then we have to invest time and energy in recruitment. And I'd rather keep our teachers and let them know that we appreciate them and compensate them for all the things they do. The majority of teachers don't have a way of paying for advanced degrees. There's all kinds of things that impact payment increase. And I know from just my own budget that things increased this year. I mean, mortgage and everything else because of interest or whatever, for whatever reason. But I would like to at least keep our teachers on an even keel, and so I do support 4% for our teachers.
I just wanted to be clear that my suggestion that I'd like to query my colleagues on whether they would be interested in an increase, but not at the expense of the positions that were outlined. I just want to be clear that that's data driven, right, and I just want to be clear that that's not a trade-off in my view. It's an addition.
I'll just go down. Ms. Hummel.
In light of what Mrs. Young and Mrs. Cook said, do we know what our competitors are doing? Are they, in their budget, looking at 3%, 4%? I mean,
I think there's been some very preliminary conversations. Some are at 3%. I know Virginia Beach, I think it's going in at 3.5%. Some more local are talking 2%. So everybody's really across the board right now, but 3 is not out of line, but some are going higher. And I think as the budget's determined by the General Assembly, we've got the governor's budget that is putting the increase in the second year of the biennium. There's 2 different versions going through the House and Senate now, and we're not quite sure where the budget will actually land for teacher salaries.
So if we stay at 3 and everyone else is at 3, then we remain number 9.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. As Mrs. Cook said, just getting this, kind of want to go through it and dive into it. As far as teacher pay, sure, I'd like to do whatever we can for our teachers. I think they are obviously our school division. Beyond anything else, without the teachers, we don't get results, and so I think that's important. Other thing too, which I think we should look at is our substitute pay.
Yes.
Where I see we're from what we know, we're the lowest that of any of the school systems. It seems also that it's not that big of a budget impact if I do my math right. If we were up at $15 a day with 2,700 teacher vacancies, that's 27,000 plus 13, so that's like $40,000. It wouldn't seem like that would be a significant impact to me, and I think that our substitutes deserve that. So I just think that we really need to look at the budget impacts of changing our substitutes and doing something there, because I think that granted, I understand the economics of we don't have that big of a problem filling our substitute roles, but I think it's incumbent upon us to show the appreciation, because I don't know anybody who'd do that job for $65 a day for the money, but that's just another story, I guess. The other challenge too with the budget is we're approving it. Our first chance to approve it is March 17th. The General Assembly may not finish their work much before that, much less what's on the governor's desk and what he signs, and so that's there's all kinds of impacts coming out of Richmond this year with unfunded mandates and funding mandates and wherever that falls. So that's going to be a challenge for us to meet our April 1st deadline to the city and the county. So I think that's something else to consider. I would like to say that I do appreciate the work that you and your staff and Dr. Herron's staff have done to put together this budget and to put together what you believe this is a budget of need. I think it goes a long way towards addressing some of the issues that we have, particularly with the FTEs, the positions that we're adding. We're not necessarily adding any students, but as you stated when you began, that our students have more needs, and everything you read, that's just increasing. So I appreciate the good work that you guys have done that. So thank you.
Mr. Kelly, Dr. Beers.
I have a question about the organizational chart and what the possible impact might be on the budget. Because I know we eliminated a senior director position, and I'm seeing a new position, director of elementary C&I, director of secondary C&I, and I assume each one of those positions will have support staff. You don't need to bring that to me now, but I'd like to know sometime in the not too distant future what the budget impact of that will be.
That's a good point.
In other words, how much is that going to cost? And I know that funding for that senior director position in there. I'm just curious about that, because we haven't had any discussion about that.
Dr. Beers, I could probably address that just on a high level. We had a coordinator of Title I programs who left the division for promotion, and so the former senior director position and that position have both been used to create two director level positions, and they will be both supported by a person who's there already in admin support.
So is it safe to say then it's a wash?
Almost, because some of the position was paid for with title funding, but some of the new elementary position who will supervise title programs will be paid for with title funding as well.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Mr. Dowell?
Thank you. I had a few questions. You answered one of them for me, I believe. There we go. I didn't want to cough into it. So you answered that, I think there was a 6.6% increased request for funding from the localities in 2019, FY19, and that was due to James Blair. I saw that number and it was concerning to me because it was so high, but that was due to the building? Yeah.
The staffing of a new school, the operational cost of the staffing of a new school creates an elevation of funding in the year the school opens.
Thank you. Okay. Earlier you talked about individual student needs. You were talking about the trending down in population of our students across our schools, many of our schools, but you said that there's also individual student needs are increasing. Can you speak to what that actually means?
I can probably speak to that a little bit as well. A lot of in listening and learning from teacher leadership groups, such as there are members here tonight from WJCEA and Teacher Forum, what I've heard consistently for the last 2 years is that it's not just salary for teachers, it's a supportive teaching environment. All of the positions, not all, but most of the positions that are in the budget tonight, counselors, LPN, security officers, behavior specialists, special education staff, staff to support English learners, all of those positions are actually either going to support current teachers or reduce class numbers or create support for students with greater need. So when I look at the number of positions in the budget, I think there's about 4.5 are going to be based at central office. The rest will literally be in the schools having a role to play in our actual school buildings. Even the additional administrators, and a part of that is due to the changing behaviors of students. Also, when you look at special education across our region, I think our percentage is 15.4%. It's much higher than other school divisions across our region. So what we've been doing for years is making do with what we have instead of beginning to add real support around our teachers and around our students to make them successful in the classroom.
Thank you. 2 other questions. The average salary adjustment of 3% for eligible employees, can you help me understand what a non-eligible employee would be?
Right now, that does not include substitutes.
A substitute is what we've been talking about.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dowell.
I thought there was another question on that.
No,
Okay.
I understood
I do
that,
have
but-
one more, if that's
Okay.
okay. So looking at the, January 7th presentation on this, under SOQ, it talks about categorical incentive, and there's a 12% reduction in funding, just a little over $500,000. What's that based on? Is that something that we can control or have controlled? And I'm not asking for an answer today. I know I didn't make you aware that that was going to be asked, but I am curious what that's based on, if that's something that's controlled within the school system, in the classroom, what we're doing in relation to that, receiving greater monies from that categorical incentive, or not receiving funds from that. Interested to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dowell. Any additional questions before I go?
No, I
Ms.
just
Young?
have one more question. For our future think, we look at that number every year, but our enrollment as of September 30th, 2019 was 11,448 students. You can send me the information. What was the projected with Future Think for last year, what that number was going to be?
I'll send that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Just to add on to that, Ms. Ewing, I think it's fair to say that historically we've been within about 1%. I know she'll send me the exact number, but we've been within 1%.
I remember that. I just would like to see
actual
the
number.
difference.
So I echo what many of my colleagues said tonight. I think it's important to invest in our employees. And then just to add on to Mr. Dowell's question about the need of our students, that's not a phenomena that's unique to this community. And so I hope that our funding partners and the broader community understand that across the country, K-12 is experiencing students with greater need. And quite frankly, it's self-regulation. We have very young elementary school age kids who are struggling. And for some, there are clear mental health issues. Sometimes it's trauma. Sometimes it's a disability, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just a typically developing child who is struggling in the classroom. And so what that means for our teachers is that it's harder to do their job. It's harder for them to educate the other students in the classroom. Kids are just more needy. And I've said this before over and over and over, but with medical advancements, micro-preemies live. They live today, which is a wonderful thing, but they also come to our classrooms wired, neurologically different. And so that's very real. And so while we have a few less students that are projected, the needs of our students far outweigh that. And then just want to point out, those are just projections. You know, last year we had projections, and Matthew Whaley had, 50 extra kids that we didn't plan on. So they are just projections. So I would encourage my colleagues to forward questions to Dr. Herron. This is a lot to take in, and it's a lot of work, and thank you, and it's our job to now really delve into that and come back with some more thoughtful questions and discussion. I had a couple quick questions that maybe you can answer tonight, or you can send it to me later. Was curious about the county's decision to stop using our custodial services. Like, do we know what drove that decision?
Mr. Snipes may have information, as he's much more aware of the change.
Madam Chair, School Board Members, Dr. Herron, the county, as you know, we've been using them, they've been using our services for at least 6 to 8 years now. According to them, they just were looking for something different, nothing in particular. It may have been service, but.
Thank you. And then if I could just have some additional information about the thought process or the decision with regard to trailers and which elementary schools are getting the trailers, because all of them are over capacity. And so, quite frankly, they all need trailers. So just so I can understand that decision. So unless there's additional questions, thoughts, we'll have time to understand this, read it, and we'll discuss this again. Moving on, thank you, Ms. Ewing. The next item, 10.1, proposed agenda item. So award a contract for construction services for the operations bus garage HVAC to Hvac Mechanical Services in the amount of $150,973, and we'll vote on this at the next meeting. Mr. Snipes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Snipes is going to present the item this evening. This is one of the year-end spending plan items that the board is already aware of. Thank you, Mr. Snipes.
Again, good evening, Madam Chair, School Board Members, Dr. Herron. The operations staff and the bus mechanics are truly excited and appreciative to bring this agenda item to you tonight. This nice project was approved in the FY19 year-end spending plan. Installing an HVAC unit will improve the work conditions of our WJCC mechanics and the efficiency of the operations. This proposal will construct a 30-ton split system HVAC addition in the mechanic bus garage, and we plan to have this installed by June the 30th. Sealed bids were solicited under the JCC HVAC contract number 19-13739, and the superintendent recommends that the board review the information and be prepared to award at the next school board meeting. In conclusion, again, I'd like to say thank you for considering this item. It is really appreciated by the mechanics and operations. And two of the members of our transportation team are here tonight to show their support for this and to answer any questions that you may pose. It's Director of Transportation, Mr. Lambusta, and Foreman Billy Estes.
Snipes, are there questions?
I'm in.
I think we're all in.
I think
I'm
my
glad
only
it's
comment is I wish we
happening.
could vote on it tonight.
Right.
But there is that process thing that we have to do too.
I'm glad it's going to hit before July and August.
They are as well.
Okay, so unless there's additional comments,
I'd just like to say too, I appreciate them showing tonight and
Yes, thank you.
and providing their support. So, thank you.
alrighty. Moving on to board matters. Should I go with Mr. Dowell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me turn this back on. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I did have the privilege to go out to Stonehouse Elementary, as Ms. Hunley mentioned, and I was invited to attend their kindergarten Black History program, kindergartners, and it was extraordinary. I asked at the end, how long did this take you guys to put together and corral these young kids and get them in the right place? And I'm expecting they're saying, well, we've been working on it the whole year. And they did it in short time, and it was very well done. One of the things I really appreciated about it was they struck a good balance between cute and honoring the history of those that really fought in the trenches for true equality in this country. They made mention of the songs that the young kids were singing and that they seem joyful today as we sing them, but back then they were just trying to get through. They were singing these songs trying to get through the day and praying to the Lord, praying to God for help and for salvation in some really bleak times. So I appreciated that that was made known to many folks that probably didn't understand what they were going through back then. So thank you. And thanks for the invitation. I wanted to say to Mr. Siobhan Meyer, who will be graduating, I think, this year and heading off to the shipyard. Well done. Keep up the good work if you're watching. And they've got a great program there. So make the most of it and finish strong, Mr. Myers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, Dr. Beers?
Yeah, I also would like to thank all staff who were involved in the calendar, the budget, putting the budget together, all of those really serious nuts and bolts stuff that I know take a tremendous amount of time, and I very much appreciate that. And I also would extend an invitation to the general public to not just look at the budget, but come out and support that budget as well. And I definitely want to be that sometime in July, when you pull the when you pull that switch, I'm going to be out there, because I just think everybody's going to just work harder, faster, better when they're in a cooler climate. And I'm glad we kept fussing about that, and that came through. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Mr. Kelly?
I really don't have much to add beyond what's been said already. We should have warned Mr. Dowell that when you go to a kindergarten class, they're going to put you to work. I will also say again, and I will say it before June as well, that we're going to miss Ms. Hunley as she goes into retirement. Quite the figure in this room and in Stonehouse and with your kids. So we're going to miss you. So, and I'd also like to thank, once again, say to the administration for the calendar and the budget, as Dr. Beers talked about, all the work that is put in to generate those documents and provide those and answer those questions for us, and appreciate that good work.
Mr. Kelly? Ms. Young?
Yes, well, first of all, I just want to thank Ms. Cook for the opportunity of attending the Hvac meeting. I enjoyed it. We had to move because they were beating drums and some other interesting rituals were going on over there. But we finally did move. It was just distracting to be next to the pool. But I'm always impressed when I'm around the Hvac how dedicated they are. They're dedicated to the students. They're dedicated to families and work very hard to provide support for both. So I want to thank them for allowing me to come, and Ms. Cook for inviting me. I'm so glad that I used to be a janitor many centuries ago, and I went to work at 4 in the morning. And so going to work at 3 just stuns me, and that's what our mechanics have been doing. They've been going to work at 3 o'clock in the morning so that they aren't assuaged or hit hard, or whatever word you want to use, by all of the heat from our wonderful Virginia summers. And so I'm so grateful that they're going to have AC and I too would like to be there when they pull that switch. And just know that that's going to be a vast improvement for their morale and working conditions. Again, I probably am not going to push too hard for the National Citizens Cadet Corps this year. We've got other things going because I really want to push hard for making sure that our teachers are compensated. I'd really like the 4%, and well, I'm willing to negotiate. But I'd really like our teachers to be compensated because I hate the thought of them falling further and further behind when they have so many needs of their own. So thank you.
Ms. Young, Ms. Cook?
Sounds like we need to arrange an HVAC ribbon cutting. That's what I'm hearing, yeah.
I'll be there after you pull the switch.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, 2 hours later, right?
Yeah, right.
I'd like to echo everyone's thanks to staff, both on the budget and the calendar. It's a lot of work, and I appreciate everything that goes into getting it to us. It's not easy, and we know that. I also would like to thank the young people from War Hill who came out to speak. It's always a treat to see students from Lafayette win awards, but also students come to speak their minds. It's really important, and I appreciate that. And then also, I had the opportunity to tour Hornsby Middle School, so I wanted to thank Dr. Ellison. Mr. Dow came to do that as well, and Councilman Zhang joined us on the tour, so it's always a pleasure to get out and see our school. So just wanted to let everyone know that.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Ms. Hummel?
I will RSVP to the ribbon cutting ceremony in June, so you should just plan it now. I went to Norwich and Stonehouse with Greg Dowell, and we had a lovely tour. It's always great to get out there on the far side of the county and see what's going on. They are both bursting at the seams, so and yet very very positive about their use of space and just being good sports about all of it. I wanted to thank staff for I was reading and preparing before tonight and looking at all the SBQs, all the school board questions, and there were a lot of them. So I just wanted to thank the administrative staff. We are not asking these questions lightly. We ask them to seek knowledge and to become the most informed school board members as we can. So I really appreciate your delving into all of our questions so that we can become better informed. So thank you for that. And then I also just wanted to echo what Ms. Cook said. I always, my heart is touched by the students that come out. I know when I was their age, the thought of speaking in public to a board is a very intimidating thing, and it takes a lot of bravery to do that. And so I just wanted to say I appreciate them coming out.
Thank you, Ms. Hummel. I have to echo that as well. I appreciate our students who came out tonight, and also wanted to thank our CTE students who attend the culinary program. The New Horizons prepared our dinner tonight, which was very tasty. And so thank you that we have 3 WJCC students who are currently in that program. And then wanted to let the parents and the broader community know, but definitely parents, if you haven't checked out View lately and the updates, I just shared with Mr. Landers. So my 10th grader and I are starting to look at colleges, and we wanted to pull up his cumulative GPA, which in the past I always fumbled through, and it was always on some tab and little tiny number, and it was a struggle. And so I clicked the course history button, and bam, it's beautiful. It's there, and it charts the students' graduation progress. There's a graph, there's a bar graph, and there's a little circle that tells you how close you are to graduate. It was just, thank you for those upgrades. It was just easy to read. It is beautiful. Phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Like, it's just beautiful. So parents, if you haven't checked out View lately, particularly high school parents, like all the other buttons, I mean, a lot of times we're looking at grades, but like to look at, it is robust. It has a lot of information. And then wanted to give an update. Back in November, I attended, Felicia Highland and I attended Movement Day. So as I mentioned, it's a nationwide movement that's really been around for over 10 years with the idea of primarily race reconciliation and then looking at making individual communities better. And so a diverse group of churches have come together along with several nonprofits and business leaders and have started those community conversations to identify what the broader community can do to make this a better community. And so we had our kickoff meeting in November, and then we had our subsequent meeting February 8th, where Ms. Cox and I attended, and we shared information about the school division demographics, the need of our students. Other nonprofits were there to talk about youth programs. And so the movement in Williamsburg is going to focus on affordable housing and race reconciliation and youth and service in youth. And the idea is to break down silos, identify what other nonprofits are doing, and then find ways to communicate so that we can support our youth. And one of the other speakers who was there, two speakers there in addition to the school, was Eric Stone, who is at Lafayette, longtime supporter, retired fire chief, but assistant football coach, as well as Archie Jefferson, and I wish he was here. I'll have to talk to him tomorrow at Lafayette. But they were there to talk about their Men and Women of Vision and Purpose, which is a program that started, I think, 2 years ago, and it's at Lafayette and James Blair. They have touched over 600 WJCC students and have mentored them, and they have really great anecdotal information about where students have gone after they've graduated. And so they had wristbands that they were sharing with everyone, and so they wanted everyone on the board have a wristband, so I told Archie that I would share these with them. So I'm going to pass them this way first.
She gives me like 3 and all that.
I'm going to do it my way.
4.
But I could just pass that. See, now I could just keep talking. But anyways, so
Talking anyway.
took my band.
I was given 3 that way. Dr.
So
Aaron,
thank
got
you.
that one?
So thank you, Archie, and also and Dr. Heron has one too. And
That's why I put 4 that way.
And Mr. Capers, who is at James Blair, is also a part of this. And so they've done a lot to help guide our students. And so we appreciate them and look forward to learning some more about the success that they've had with our students. I'm looking forward to the foundation's celebration. Like, that's a really fun day to get on the bus and surprise teachers. And so I'm really looking forward to that on the 25th. And then encourage the broader community to come out and support our budget and share your thoughts with us. But bottom line, support our budget. And so, like I said, at the February 8th Movement Day, what folks in the community could do is pray for our school division and support our budget and advocate for our budget, and not only here locally, but at the General Assembly level as well. Because we need to support our students and our teachers. So moving on to upcoming events, we have a School Liaison Committee on February 20th at 8 a.m. in the Annex in the room 300. On the 21st, there's a Policy Committee at 8 a.m. in the Annex. And then upcoming meetings, we have closed session on March 3rd at 6 o'clock in the Annex, followed by a public hearing at 6:30 in room 300. We have work session and action items immediately following the public hearing. And then we have our joint meeting with our funding partners on March 13th. So we don't have a location just yet, but the city is hosting that meeting. Then we have closed session on the 17th, 6 p.m. and here, we're back here again, and then followed by a regular meeting. And so unless there's additional...
Our next school board meeting will be on Super Tuesday. It will be the primary date, and I just want to, hope that all of our schools, since we're not closing for the students that day, that we're taking as many precautions as we possibly can to just make the day as uneventful as possible while supporting the polling places that need to occur at those schools.
Without further ado, this meeting is adjourned.